inevitability behind this industry because it has the right mindset, it has the right technology, and it's ethical. How can you argue with creating a financial system that's fair for everyone? How can you argue against getting rid of corruption? How can you argue that when you vote, you know your vote was counted properly, especially for places, you know, in Middle East or other places where there's huge amounts of election fraud? How can you argue that everybody is held to the same standards and the same set of rules, regardless of what family they were born into, or if they're wealthy, or if they're poor, or so forth? And how can you argue for a system where you get to keep the fruits of your labors? You own your own identity. You own your own money. And, you know, it's consent-based instead of just trust us, we'll take good care of you. And so given that we have an ethical and philosophical advantage over the incumbent system, alongside a massive order of magnitude improvement in efficiency, and get rid of all this fragmentation, it just makes sense to me. It's like comparing the vacuum tube to the transistor. You know, you look at the science and you look at where it's going, and you say, it's just like Don Valentine when he started Sequoia. It's like, guys, this is going to eat everything. I got to get on this train. I don't know how, but I got to get on it, because in 10, 20, 30 years, when you project it out, that vector is going to be running with the horses. It's gone. And so I think we're definitely right place. And I have hope. There's just too much money. Bitcoin hitting $1 trillion, it's too big to fail. Now we are at the size that Chase was at when it got a bailout. Yeah, you know, there's no way that they can say, okay, we're going to bail those guys out, but not us. The institutions are getting aboard. Tesla just bought some. You know, the other Fortune 500 will follow. The ship has sailed, and this industry is here to stay.
Yeah. You know, one of the interesting things is I hear you discuss this at a broad philosophical level. We're in this incredibly politically polarized time right now, obviously, but I imagine people who are on the libertarian side and on the progressive social justice side of the equation are probably both nodding their heads, listening to some of the points that you're making about keeping the fruit of your labor, a more fair, balanced, and open system.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. They say, well, the system is systemically flawed, so we need to change the system. It's just bizarre to me that a lot of people come out and say, well, the solution is to make a bigger and more powerful system. It's like, no, just because you think you might be in charge of that system for a while doesn't necessarily translate to you actually getting what you want. Almost always you lose control of the Leviathan, and then people co-opt it who actually have opposite values as you. And now they're in a much better position to massively hurt you. You don't solve a bad system by building a bigger system. You solve it by fundamentally changing the relationship and the nature of the system. We did this. Americans are the original revolutionaries. So we were the original revolutionaries in that respect, and we didn't always honor the things we put on paper, but that mindset is inculcated and ingrained into our culture. And I like to believe that if you don't like the system you have, then you should just go change it and don't ask for permission. Find a way to make it happen. And if you have values, try to find a way to grind your values into the system that you're creating and make them immutable. The power of blockchain is that you can do that with code. For example, Satoshi said 21 million Bitcoin. That's not a debate. It's there. It's built into the system. Whether you agree with it or not, that's the term of use going into that. It's cut into stone. You might as well tattoo it on your body. It's not going to change. Okay? And you can now, because of programmability, you can build social structures and settlement systems, lending systems, whatever you want, with that same level of immutability of value. And I think that's the core proposition of our space, not beyond the incentives engineering we do and the liquefaction of value and so forth. The fact that our philosophy, our principles, even if they're inconvenient to the moment, can be enshrined in a way that they're immutable. Bitcoin was tested. For example, in 2013, when Mt. Gox collapsed, the Bitcoin Core developers had millions of dollars of their own money on Mt. Gox. And there was people walking around saying, well, should we fork Bitcoin to reimburse the people who lost money because it's such a catastrophic event? The core developers didn't even consider it. They said, no way, no how. We're not going to think about it. It is what it is. We lost our money this time, but for the integrity of the system has to preserve and run as it was written. Code is law in this respect. That's a new thing in humanity. We're very good at making rules and then having exceptions to the rule. No hats. I guess you can wear a hat. No masks. Okay, I guess you have to wear a mask. We're always good at finding that one little edge case and saying, no. But the laws of physics don't have exceptions. There's been more than one mountaineer climbing a mountain who suddenly wishes that gravity didn't apply to him. So, no matter how much he has that wishful thinking, he's just going to have to deal with the consequences of gravity. And similarly, it's nice to have social institutions and structures where you have that same level of certainty and assurance. And if you can encode them with good principles, they'll endure generation after generation, and then we can build a proper society on them that's fair for everyone.
Yeah. It's a powerful and very large vision, which brings me to this question. In terms of pragmatically, where are we right now with Cardano in the process of realizing that vision?
What's great is there's a lot of competitors. There's Algorand and Tezos, and there's F2 and so forth. And all of us are kind of scratching at the same things. And that's great because there's strength in numbers, and they have different philosophies and teams and scientific approaches. And so somebody's going to get it done. Cardano, I think, is the leader right now in terms of, because we did the deep investments in science, and we did the deep investments in proper engineering, and we have market access to the places where I think this is going to shine the brightest. As I said, I'm not here to make the 17-year-old yield farmer in his mom's basement in New Jersey rich. I mean, he'll figure it out for himself. He's okay. I'm worried about the farmer in Ethiopia. But, regardless of where you fall on the spectrum, there's enough people here that we're starting to see very real progress on scalability, sustainability, and interoperability. There's protocols like NEPA-POWs and a lot of cool sidechain protocols that exist to move value and information between systems. The Oracle systems like Chainlink and so forth have really evolved, and they've gotten to a point where they're starting to become great protocols, and the next generation of them are going to be phenomenal. We're starting to see tons of very scalable engines to replace that steam engine of proof of work be proposed that are academically reviewed and tested at scale. And so there's an inevitability behind that. The hard part is governance, and that's a huge experiment. I think we're the leader in that because we have something called Catalyst, and we have over 10,000 people actively participating, voting, debating. And before the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised to see that grow to 100,000 people. And it's going to be funding tens, eventually hundreds of millions of dollars worth of projects, and that eventually used for governance, where it actually will decide how to upgrade the system. And we've built that with great universities like University of Lancaster. We've built that with European Union grants like the Horizons 2020 program with IBM Research and Guard Time. So we have a lot of great partners there. And people like IdeaScale, they work with us. The CEO of that group, I think, is going to be running a Cardano stake pool. But that's just the beginning. And that's probably the hardest of all the problems because we don't really have a model. It's one thing to say, is there something that runs with billions of people? Sure, Google, great, okay. Or Windows. All right, so we have that. Interoperability, we have Wi-Fi, it works, right? So we have this concept of something that's universal. But is there a perfect government? Is there like one country on the map you can point to and say, everything there works? It's utopia land.